Welcome to the Think Generation Wealth Podcast, episode number 86, and I am your host, Amir Estimo. Hey, first of all, I'd like to apologize if you hear any noise in the background. There's actually my air conditioner that's going, and I actually was listening to podcast episode number 85, and I kind of heard it. I was like, oh man, hopefully that doesn't disturb anybody. So I would like to jump into the podcast, but before we do that, I'd like to say thank you for listening to the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to it. The fact that you're taking the time to this podcast is much appreciative because you could be doing anything in this world. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully this podcast is of value to you. Now, the second thing I want to do is talk about on the podcast to do. The second thing I want to talk about is actually want to talk about wealth. When it comes to wealth, why it is imperative to really stand your ground. So basically, be firm in your goals, especially when it comes to financial. And the reason I'm saying this is me and my wife actually celebrated a win this past weekend. Well, at least that's what we like to think. And just to kind of share a personal experience is me and my wife back in 2019, we went to Orlando, Florida with our family, and we stayed at I think it was an Airbnb, but it was inside a resort. And obviously they when you're in a resort, they want to pitch you. So we went to the pitch meeting, and then we ended up leaving with a timeshare. And we've had this timeshare for 3 years now, and we didn't do anything with it the first year because obviously of COVID, and then we actually kind of started using it probably the beginning of 2021. And all I can say is this is something me and my wife talked about, but this is definitely something we would just like to get rid of. Like eventually just, I don't know, maybe we're looking at some options now, but to pay it off, because, you want to build wealth. You can't be in the business of owing people. And I kind of alluded to this in the last podcast. You just can't be in the business of owing people. When you start owing people, you got too many quote unquote expenses. You don't have enough income. Then you can't build wealth. And if you just read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki talks about that. He actually drives a chart, and in this chart, he talks about how he shows this line. You go in income and expenses. It comes out right, and if you have too much expenses, then less than your income, you can't build wealth. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we're looking at some options to paying this thing off after what we just found out. So let's say about probably the last maybe couple of weeks, they've been reaching out to us. So they're like, hey, we would like to do a presentation and all this nonsense, but, and it's about, hey, one thing, we took a survey, and then that's the company. The company is a $1 billion company. And so they came in, they were like, hey, we just want to do this presentation and all this stuff. So I said, okay, cool. Me and my wife sat through. It was a 4-hour presentation. Man, I tell you, we started at 9:30 and we didn't finish till almost 1. And actually, I'm going to take a survey, and that's going to be one of my critiques. Can't be on a Zoom call 4 hours. That's just no. Or at least give someone the chance. Give them the heads up. Like, hey, this could be up to 4 hours. Then you can make some changes, and maybe if they do that, a lot of people won't show up. Who knows? But I think it's better for a company if you may get 1,000 no's, but if you end up getting 10 people, that stays on the Zoom call, and let's say 3 or 4, or maybe 3 or 4 people upgrades to their plan, it's well worth it, right? So I think they need to really explore cutting the time down. It shouldn't be in no more than an hour, because we actually just went to one in Mexico. We didn't do the timeshare or any of that stuff. And I just told my wife to say, anytime we do a vacation going forward, let's stay away from resorts, because I just don't want to deal with timeshare. Now, I like the whole all-inclusive thing and all that, But to me, the peace of mind of knowing I'm just going on vacation, I don't really too much. Like I told my wife, this is not. I mean, I don't. If it's just something I know, hey, just actually, when we were in Mexico, the perks that we got, they were actually pretty good. They're pretty good perks. So I was very surprised. We ended up going to the countryside. We're going to a place. We went to the beaches. I went snorkeling, and we went to the countryside. We took a trip. Went out to eat in the country. Had a great time. It was pleasant. I was very surprised. We really enjoyed Mexico, man. So learned a lot. We ended up going to Tequila Factory and obviously a little too much tequila at some time, but it's vacation, right? So anywho, for me. We went to the presentation this past Saturday, 4-hour presentation and whatnot. And me and my wife, the reason why I say it's so important to stick to your goals, because one thing I've noticed, if you guys notice, right now this market is hot. So a lot of these companies are calling, hey, you know what? We can do this and that for you. You have to stand your ground. You got to stand your focus. And the one thing me and my wife have talked about is we can't deviate from the goal. The goal is we want to increase our income. We have a business. We started a business, small business, pay down debt, and increase our savings rate, right? You got to take care of yourself now than later, because it's going to be even harder later. So to me, the company, they did this presentation after seeing all the numbers and all that. It's like, wow, man, I'm going to pay let's say it was $35,000 more. And I realized that we're almost done paying this timeshare. We don't have much left. We can literally knock this off in a year or two. If we stay complete focused, we can knock this off literally in a year. That's completely focused, staying committed to your goals. Because they're going to come at you. Hey, they're going to send you all these credit cards. Man, you take this credit card and, in 0% interest until this year. You better, if you're going to take a credit card, especially a business card, you should take that and go start a business. Right now is the best time to start a business. Right now. Right now is the best time. Yeah, the market is gloomy right now. People are losing money left and right. But if you are part of the market, you understand the market goes through, cycles, right? You're going to go up, you're going to go down, you're going to go up, you're going to go down. I don't even look at my 401k. I look at it maybe every quarter. And I lost 16% last time I saw it. It was down 16% year over year. What am I going to do, right? Because the year before that, it was up 23%. The last 2 or 3 years, it was up 23%. So do you just completely freak out? Or do you say, no, what? This is part of building. This is part of the process. And one thing a coach of mine told me, my mentor she tells me, she says, you have to detach yourself from the end. Like, if you start a business, detach yourself from the money. Man, I want to make a lot of money. Detach yourself from that and embrace the process. And for us, when we sat through it, looked at the numbers, we were like, well, now our payments are going to go up this. We said no. Said no. You're going to have to learn to say no. And they're going to tell you no. You're going to say, and obviously when you're in sales, you can't take no's. You can't take the first no. So you're going to figure out other ways, right? But you have to remain focused. My mortgage company called me and say, hey, you know what? We got, you got this, right now the market's hot. Your house can be appraised for this amount. You could do a cash out refi and, take the money and go maybe buy yourself another house. I mean, it sounds great. It does. Then I'm like, wait, my payment's going to go up $200, but that's not the goal. You have to learn to say no. You have to say no. If it's not part of the plan, it's not part of the goal, you have to say no. Because if you don't say no, you're just only going to, and it really shows discipline. And I realize when it comes to building wealth, you have to be disciplined. You have to be. Because if you're not disciplined, you're going to make mistakes. And me and my wife, when we talk about this, the timeshare, we don't regret it, but it's not, if we had to do it over, we probably wouldn't have done it. We fell in love with the end result, but not the process. Now when we have to go through the process, we realize, oh, this thing is a joke, right? We learned some things, though. We actually learned some things. And you know what? The numbers would probably make sense. But I don't want to go take out, $30-something thousand loan. My debt to income goes up 30-something thousand. Now I'm paying more money. That now your expenses go up even more, because that's not the goal. You got to stick to the goal, stick to the plan, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Because when it comes to building wealth, you have to be disciplined, and that took me back. I went back and thought about it. I said, this is why you have to be disciplined building wealth. Because you're going to, the shiny object syndrome, right? Hey, we got all this going on. And that's including credit cards, personal loans, mortgage refinance. If you don't need to refinance, don't worry about it. Like I told myself, hey, if I'm going to build wealth, I'm going to use that money to grow a business. I'm going to use that money that's how I do, build wealth. But right now, is that the goal? Now if that's the goal, go for it. But if it's not the goal, take a step back and realize, hey, you know what? I got to stick to the plan. Me and my wife, we had a plan. We make a plan. We said, this is what we're going to do. Boom, boom, boom. We have to have a plan in place. Okay? So I just wanted to, today's podcast is actually very short. I just wanted to just share that with you guys, because anybody that's going through this, and the reason I share that story and I say it's a win, because we had to be disciplined. And might I tell you, me and my wife, we started to think like, oh man, maybe we can do this. But then when we stopped and think, we had to stop and think and say, that's not part of the plan. So let's pass on this, honey. I've had to say no twice the last couple of days, actually. Between, hey, you can come and do a mortgage refi, and hey, maybe I should go buy a house, right? But unfortunately, that's not part of the plan. So you gotta be focused. You gotta be disciplined. There's two things: focus and discipline. That is the word I'm actually using the next 90 days. Is focus and discipline, right? And that's what that's what all of us need when it comes to wealth, being financially independent, financially free, and all this stuff. The people who's reached that were focused and they were disciplined. And that taught me one thing: growth. That's the third thing. And the reason I said growth is because my mindset in 2019 and my mindset in 2022 are not the same. Even though I'm 3 years older now, and you say, oh, that's not that much, but it is. You learn. Now, if you would have had the same presentation, no. And you know what? To some people, the numbers probably make sense, right? Because you think about it, let's say you decide to go on certain trips, and certain trips going to cost you some money. And you know what? The price that you probably pay is probably the price you would pay anyways if you went on vacation, right? But when you have things like COVID happen, you still got to be making payments. It's not fun. Not at all. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. When it comes to wealth, folks, be disciplined, be focused, and growth. This is Amir Estimo, and thank you for listening to the Think Generational Wealth podcast. Next week, much love. Peace.